Hello everyone, so today we're gonna do our first reaction to Argon Bolt on the Shadow of Evangelion 5, Neo Ranga. So, long story short, I've seen Neo Ranga, and I love Neo Ranga, actually. So, and I think that a lot of the criticism it gets is totally fucking unfair, especially considering a lot of what people are criticizing it for was like completely surface level, not actually understanding what the hell's going on in the show because they didn't actually watch the fucking show, right? But this is apparently a rebuttal to some of the bad faith video essays out there. So I'm actually really interested to see what this is because, again, I love Neo Ranga. If you've never actually seen it, I would totally suggest giving it a shot. It's not necessarily what you're going to expect. Okay, so let us begin.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about a real neat one. Maybe the neatest show in this whole series. But also, maybe one of the weirdest ones. It's a great...
It is definitely bizarre from an anime standpoint. I'm not gonna lie, right? Like, from the standpoint, it's definitely not trying to do what most other anime are trying to do, and that's one of the reasons I actually do like it. It has a genuinely unique take on this that I don't really see anyone else doing, and it's actually kind of interesting.
Example to talk about deconstruction. It's a great example to talk about realism and to talk about mecha.
Deconstruction as a term is wildly misapplied to places where it's not actually being done. And there is an over-fascination with deconstruction, to be perfectly honest. Deconstruction is not good in and of itself. It is simply a tool that can be used, especially when your entire purpose is to reconstruct something after the fact, right? But like, deconstructionism itself is a worldview, which, by the way, there is a worldview called deconstructionism, right? Is completely self-defeating because all you have to do is apply the epistemology of deconstruction to itself, and it falls apart, right? It's like logical positivism, right? Where it's like, okay, the only thing that you can really say that you know are things that are empirically verifiable, and then you just ask the question, is that statement itself empirically verifiable? And the answer is no. Right? So it doesn't even pass its own test. It's the same thing with deconstruction, right? It's like, oh yeah, everything must be deconstructed. There is no stable final statement on how, there is no single stable, use of language. There is no final statement. There are only like power plays and structures. It's like, okay, then here's the question. Is what you said just true, or is it just another power play? Right? It completely shoots itself in the foot. Like, and again, if you're trying to try to do something like deconstructionism, like as a worldview, you just end up with an infinite regress of deconstructing systems, and you never actually arrive at anything final. It is the same problem that you get in epistemology with infinitism. But anyway, I could probably make that into its own video, but just slight tangent here.
A supremely weird freaking show.
I fucking love this show.
Returning viewers probably already got this, but for any new folks, when it comes to the big humanoid dude type anime, the robot ce n'est pas juste un robot. These shows are not about vaguely human-shaped giant forklifts. Even Western mecha isn't even that. When Ripley in the Power Loader, a literal forklift, is fighting the Queen Xenomorph, it's really about being a bad mama fight first and foremost. The robot, the kaiju, the kyojin are always something more.
Yeah, Kyojin is just the term that they use in the Neo Ranga series for the mecha. But, and they're kind of like halfway between a mech and a kaiju, but hopefully he'll get there.
For Gundam, the mobile suit was a nuclear-powered fighting spacesuit. But what it also did was recenter the modern industrial war back onto the struggle of humans against humans. And, could they change, blah blah blah, new type stuff. For Evangelion, the robot became a metaphor for pushing yourself outside your introverted self to experience the world, even at the risk of pain. It was also literally and metaphorically Shinji's mom, and the comfort of maternal protection. Can you believe in yourself and face others, even through that pain?
To be fair, Evangelion's not that deep. It tells you the literal fucking message of Evangelion at the end of Evangelion in literally the last 2 episodes of the original series run. And it even tells you the message at the fucking last movie of the Rebuild franchise, right? If you don't understand Evangelion, you literally didn't watch the fucking show. It's not that fucking hard.
For Gurren Lagann, it was also about self-confidence and aspiration. For Eureka 7, the Nirvash was really about relationships.
Eureka 7 was really fun. Owl fucking ruined Eureka 7, though. Like, Eureka 7 on its own was good. Like, Eureka 7 Owl is fucking awful, to be perfectly honest.
Giant Robo is the dichotomy of good and dangerous nuclear power. You get the idea. Okay, so now, what if I told you, just to start off, like, not even the only thing in the show, but just the initial one inside Neo Ranga is cultural appropriation as represented by the kaiju mech thing, and also how to make money off of it. Like I said.
Yeah. Neo Ranga, despite the giant robot, is actually really fucking down to earth. The cultural appropriation thing is kind of like westernizing this, to be perfectly honest. That's definitely a Western take on what happened, but I guess that's one reading you could take from it. It's not that particular reading I would take. It's a little, again, too Western in my viewpoint. Let's see, Kionalo says, hold on, SpartanBot says, yeah, I can see why that would be rare. Oh, wait, no, hold on, I missed that part. Okay, yeah, SpartanBot actually said Zhao, a general of the Wei Kingdom, and Dan, a general turned rebel leader against Wei Kingdom. Okay, yeah, I see that would be rare. Okay, fair enough. Kionalo says, nothing will be as bizarre as knowing Kiss Formers exists. It exists. It's basically oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. You unlocked a core memory. Oh my god. I think it was official but never came out of Japan. Yeah, it never left Japan. Sounds like Beast 9 when it comes to the mechs. I don't think I've seen Beast 9.
It's weird. Real weird. But hey, look at these half-naked girls.
Hey, do not dare. Do not dare. Hold on. He said the thing. He disparaged the opening, so we are going to watch the opening. Hold on. Oh shit. Okay. So this is the credit. So this is the opening for Neo Ranga. Just watch this and tell me this doesn't already like fucking big, absolutely based opening. In the Middle East, they call it Mecha. Okay, that's funny. I'm probably gonna have to edit the sound out, but you know. I miss the tasteful nudity of 90s and like early 2000s anime openings. Bring the tasteful nudity of the opening back. God damn it, right? Fan service is based, actually. By the way, none of that fucking opening has anything to do with the series. None of that fucking shit happens. The opening is an entire fucking misdirection. But anyway. So yeah, apparently this is a series. We're starting at episode 5.
To understand where Ranga comes from, I first want to highlight who brought it there and how.
Just look at that mech design. Look at this shit. This is fucking cool, right? Granted, this mech is made out of wood, so it's like...
The primary writing of the series was done by Sho Aikawa. Now, Aikawa also wrote for the
Whey Protein Kingdom. Interesting.
Previously mentioned in the series, Nadeshiko. In addition, he, after Ranga, would go on to write for the Full Metal Alchemist, the Bones, that is, adaptation of the anime, and its film. Guard, and in OVAs, he worked on everything from Zeromeyer to the Starship Troopers OVA. Ayakawa, importantly, also wrote for several Kamen Rider series. He would also later do a bit on Razafon.
I'm not a big fan of Razafon. Anyway, because like Razafon is very clearly a response to Evangelion that didn't understand Evangelion. Let's see. Kionado says Beast 9 is a Korean manga. It's good but fairly ecchi. Fair enough. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of ecchi.
So this is a guy who, much like Anno, worked all up and down the general nerd list in writing, and probably while doing so had a bunch of interesting or neat observations stored up. I mention all of this because it helps explain perhaps to you, dear viewer, where this extremely odd show and its angles come from. The second extremely odd thing, and keep in mind,
I would agree, the song is pretty.
I ain't even got to the show yet, is its extremely whack running time.
Oh yeah, so y'all are probably used to 26-minute episodes, right? Neo Ranga would in the 26. Yeah, Neo Ranga doesn't do 26-minute runtimes. It's way shorter. Like all of the storytelling in Neo Ranga's episodes are actually very condensed.
This 48 episode show is in fact not. It's actually a 24 episode anime in terms of runtime, but split into two roughly 15-ish minute chunks.
Yep.
Now, to anyone familiar with anime, this is weird. It's very, very atypical. Thankfully, Zettai Japan, my good friend, looked into it, and he helpfully discovered why. It was broadcast on TV Wow Wow, a Japanese satellite broadcasting premium subscription network.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It functioned as a sort of Japanese HBO analog, mostly dubbed US movies. Now, if you ever wondered, for instance, hey, Japanese people love Twin Peaks quite a bit, but where did they originally watch?
Says, I see the spirals and I'm hoping it's not Uzumaki. It's not, but while it's not horror, the ending of Neo Ranga is significantly darker than Uzumaki. The openings don't really have anything to do with the show itself, so it won't spoil the show. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But yeah, you are correct about that.
Said episodes of Twin Peaks. The answer was Wow Wow. So, on that channel, from 1998 to 2001, Wow Wow had Anime Complex, a roughly hour-long programming block. Now, if you operate a satellite channel in the late 90s, every hour of time you broadcast from those satellites is paid for via a subscription. So every second counts. So what if you, say, wanted to attract anime viewers, but limited time frame? So you cram in 4 15-ish minute long shows into that hour of programming block to attract people to sign on in the most high density format.
Yeah, I was gonna say his math is fucking. He corrects himself in the subtitles, but it's like, yeah, it was definitely not 4. It was 3. Kamen Rider, Den-O. I mean, I gotta get into Kamen Rider. I saw Shin Kamen Rider, and I'm like, damn, this is actually fire. I gotta get into this. I just haven't had the time to do so. If everyone had a silly Japanese cartoon anime cute girl avatar with superpowers, then no one will be silly. We're going full syndrome here, eh?
Thus, we get Ranga's bizarre setup. It was adapted to this.
Oh, Tenchi Muyo.
Studio Wow Wow is the high-density apartment balcony flower pot thing. Ranga then is the odd-as-hell purple rose. Which...
Wait, hold on. Was I right? Was that Tenchi Muyo?
It was adapted.
Oh no, is that wait, is that actually Oh My Goddess? I don't know. I didn't really watch Tenchi Muyo or Oh My Goddess, so I might be just like losing my mind.
Pot thing. Ranga then is the odd as hell purple rose which manages to pop up in there somehow. Now let me for a moment grind an axe real quick. See, before making this...
Yeah, the person who wrote that, Misato's boy, did not fucking watch Neo Ranga. I can tell you that right fucking now. Neo Ranga has real consequences, right? In fact, actually, like things that actually happen in previous episodes, obviously come back to bite people later in the show. But there are very severe consequences in Neo Ranga that actually stick. This motherfucker did not fucking watch the show. I refuse to believe he actually watched the show.
I do before making many videos. I just did a quick search on YouTube for who may have talked about it. I was pointed to really the only major one I could find, which was Misato's Boy, a channel I didn't know before. And questionable name aside, it reminded me of why I started on YouTube in the first place. A stare at the camera, barely coherent series of complaints from someone who probably didn't pay much close attention, because a lot of the things they complain about are directly answered in the show.
Yeah.
But this guy is also one of those low-quality YouTube, grind set type uploaders, where they need a, say it with me, weekly upload, under 10 minutes, every single week of every single month.
Okay, so I was almost catched astray there, but my uploads are not 10 minutes.
Now, do you mention him just because he makes low-quality stuff? Yes, but also, more importantly, he's a living example of probably why Neo Ranga remains a niche show. It's a very odd format that doesn't leave a lot of room for the more typical anime-watching folks to adapt to. So if you aren't ready to accept that bit of oddness, you could probably get bounced out of it. Now me, though, I'm a freak. I pride myself on this kind of thing. Weird shows, weird movies, that kind of stuff. So being in this 15-minute chunk setup only made me more interested when I first watched years ago.
I will also pause this here because it's like he keeps saying that Neo Ranga's weird. The only thing weird about Neo Ranga for the most part is actually its formatting, but it's actually really down to earth in many respects, to be perfectly honest, right? Like, it's not actually weird in the way that anime often is weird, and that might be the thing that throws people off, is that it's actually, again, a fairly down to earth show, right? Okay, so I was, my god, so I was actually right that I was wrong on the Tenchi Muyo thing. Let's see, Kianala says, I also like Kamen Rider Kiva. To be fair, there's a lot of Kamen Rider. It's gonna be a pain in the ass to get into it.
With that being said, before I dive in, I do want to mention the third and very interesting weird thing about this show. Namely, that for the job of primary mechanical designer, it would be a rare, solo female lead. Now, Brainpowered, mentioned previously, had Mutsumi Inamata do a lot of work, but it still had heavy lifting done by Mamoru Nagano.
I will say I've never actually seen Brainpowered. I haven't heard very many good things about it, so I haven't really been interested in seeing it.
For Neo Ranga, Shiho Takeuchi, who usually has a credit as a key animator on everything from Ghost in the Shell to the Cowboy Bebop movie to, funnily enough, Escaflowne's film, is here credited as both the lead and sole main mechanical designer, making it an exceedingly rare project as far as anime go. Takeuchi would also later work on Razafan. So with all that being said, hopefully you've got kind of an image in your mind of, how weird this thing was and where, why, and how it was broadcast. I'm doing this to explain how strange this show is, so hopefully you know that now. So what then is the basic premise? There are 3 sisters that live in a house, which also sort of doubles as an unimportant Shinto shrine.
Yeah. I mean, none of that is all that strange for anime either, to be perfectly honest. It's not like this is completely unfathomable, right? This girl right here, though, is very much like Nabiki from Ranma 1/2, though, right? Absolutely shrewd and, absolutely, oh my god. Let's see. If everyone had their own personalized Fumo, then everyone will have a Fumo. It's probably good. It stays niche. It probably is, to be well, okay. I will tell you, it's probably good that this stays niche, because this show is not particularly shy about the old school anime, what would you say, a non-sexual nudity thing, the fan servicey thing. It's not shy of fan service, but it also does the actual thing where it's nakedness, but in a way that actually makes sense in context. So yeah, if this thing caught the attention of the mainstream, it would probably fucking start a civil war in the anime community.
Yuhi, the youngest, who is a brat who mostly acts impulsively. Minami, the eldest.
Talk about things that would immediately cause a problem. Yuhi is very well aware of
the youngest, who is a brat who mostly acts impulsive.
his affection for her, and she absolutely leads him on and exploits him. Not that he should be pursuing her in the first place. He should not, and like the show is aware that he should not be doing that, right? But yeah, no, he gets taken for a ride quite often by Yuhi, knowing that she can actually manipulate this guy because he's a fucking idiot. Oh my god. Not that he's a good guy either. He's definitely not one of the good guys. He is definitely a fucking scumbag. Let's see.
Minami, the eldest, who is essentially entirely money-minded and works initially in a talent agency as well as holding down other jobs.
Yeah.
And Ushio, the middle, voiced by Evangelion's Asuka Yuko Miyamura. She is the most do-the-right-thing, justice-minded. Their brother left, married into a royal family on a Polynesian island, and then vanished and is presumed dead. His wife, the queen, also died later.
Yep.
Thus, through royal line of descent, the three Shimabara sisters end up as the de facto inheritors of the throne.
Yeah, so this show takes shots at basically everyone. Like, it does not play favorites when it comes to, like, politics, when it comes to culture, when it comes to religion or anything like this. In fact, religion is like one of the underlying, themes of this show, if you will, but not in a what would you say? It's not like Kamichu, where it's like, oh yeah, they're going to talk about Shinto in a way that like explains it because it's like trying to promote Shinto. Nah, this is one of those things where it's like, your structures are abusable, right? No matter what they are, and if you believe that they're not above abuse, you will be in for a very bad time. Even Ushio's belief in like objective, independent goodness, like, right, because she's very much a deontologist, is subject to subversion and abuse to her disadvantage, right? So it is very mindful of, again, the idea that the systems that we use to organize the world around us and just trust to keep things in order can very well be subverted and abused for one end or another. You love Hibiki, right? Let's see. The world needs more otakus. Otakus are evolved in the mind, mentally ascended. Let's go with that.
Oh, and also, the royal line is protected by an 18-meter-tall, gigantic kaiju god kami statue thing called Ranga.
Yeah, it's kind of like a mech and it's kind of like a kaiju rolled into one, to be perfectly honest, right? It is both at the same time.
Ranga then decides to be close to the king, or queens plural, and literally marches into Tokyo. Yes, that's correct. There is not only no scientist dad, no mad monster born from radiation, no nuclear stuff, no space aliens, none of it.
Well, not right now, there's not, right? The very beginning of Neo Ranga is, again, as I said, fairly down to earth. That don't mean it don't stay outside of the old tropes, right? He says no scientist dead, right? It's like, well, that's true, but there is a character that basically fits that mold, right? You also have the thing where it's like no space aliens. It's like, put a caveat in that and watch the show, right?
Ranga is a colossi, or really, Ranga is a daimajin, a pre-industrial giant mecha. So right off the bat, this is what grabbed my attention on first watch years ago. It's not a Godzilla story, it's not a Gundam story. Ranga is squarely in a supremely weird spot, both in the series and in Mecha as a whole.
I mean, he's functionally a golem, right? I mean, if we're going to use Western terms to describe this, like earlier when we were talking about cultural appropriation, right? He's basically a golem.
Oh, also, that's where the crucifixion imagery comes from, by the way. It's Daimajin. Those are pretty cool movies. Now you think, hey, the sisters get to control or command Ranga. Well, hey, that's kind of like Tetsujin, I guess, or Giant Robo. So now, maybe every episode, or 2 15-minute A and B part episodes, Ranga fights another kaiju, right? Or, like the military or something like that. Well, no, for the most part. For the entire first half of the series, there is a grand total of 2 other kaiju who show up, both of which only appear after multi-episode story arcs conclude. So, okay.
Yeah, because it turns out the giant robot is actually not the center of, the sisters' lives, right? They actually have a life that they have to live, and the giant mech is actually not necessarily... It helps sometimes, right? It can help, right? I mean, it brings more money to the shrine, right? It is a literal, Polynesian god that has taken up residence in their, abandoned, shrine house. But, at the same time, it also just causes a lot of problems in their lives that are actually just, like, you could imagine, you could just see it, right? Like, this thing needs to drink water. This thing causes havoc on the environment around it because it is actually alive, right? When it comes to, like, some of the issues that they get into problems with, well, it turns out a giant mech doesn't actually help you with a lot of life problems, right? There's a lot of things that can't be solved by just bringing out a Gundam, right? It's like, again, this is a fairly grounded story.
So then what happens then? Is it just the military? What is in this weird show? Well, that's right, baby. It's time to talk about realism. Because in some ways, Neo Ranga is the most realistic mecha show ever.
Except for maybe Pat Labor, but, essentially. Yeah, this show takes largely the idea of magical realism, which is where it's like we give a supernatural element in, like, writing, and then we just treat it as if it was actually real, right? We as if it was always something a part of the world, and that it actually conforms to and informs the rules of how the world works, right? So it's trying to take the fantastical and yet make it realistic at the same time, and it is doable. There are other works that are magical realism, but you could this is basically a magical realist story.
In the past, I have talked about how building a sense of relative realism is actually made of several parts. There is how a fictional machine works, its engineering, there's how you treat it, as with Gundam's mechanical option.
Yeah.
Dygard grounded it with bureaucracy, logistics, Pat Laber's consequences on society, so on and so on. So, imagine a giant robot/colossus shows up tomorrow in your neighborhood. Let's say you, lucky dog, even get to pilot and or command it, right? What would happen? No, seriously, what would happen? That's exactly what the first half of the show deals with.
Yep.
Okay, so...
And yeah, it's pretty faithful to the question, right? Again, this show had very specific questions in mind that it wanted to answer, and it did basically answer those questions. Kionello says Golem mech, right? Buhakli says Golem, the second G word, right? Let's see.
Maybe the military try to capture or, like, destroy it first, but then they kind of, like, fail. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's because they obviously fail, right? Like, there would be no materials that you would be able to engineer this thing out of that we actually have access to, right? So it's like, obviously, you don't understand this thing on a material science level. So it's like trying to recreate it doesn't work because you don't understand it on a material science level. And it's obviously made out of denser and more durable things than you actually have access to. So obviously, you're just going to underestimate this thing because it's like you just think it's a giant lumbering thing when it's like, no, even to just stand, this thing has to withstand ridiculous pressures, right? Ridiculous forces. Now get it to walk, right? And then get it to do some of the other stuff it does. It's like, yeah, no, obviously the military was going to lose against this thing. This thing is so far more advanced than anything the military would even theoretically have. It's not really worth considering fighting this thing, to be perfectly honest.
So your neighbors hate you, there's this big thing and he's tearing up the roads, and they want you to get rid of it. Only then, the big guy starts attracting tourists. Business starts to pick up, and suddenly locals warm up to it.
Yep. You serve a purpose, right? No longer, because again, it's like, see, you actually being useful. At first, it was an antisocial problem, right? But now, actually, not only can we use this to pay for the damages that you've caused, we can actually make money in excess too, right? So now it actually benefits me to not care that your robot is here, right? And not everyone jumps on board at the same time, let's be fair. Some of these people jump on way sooner than others about the whole tourism thing, and then some people are diehard against it and have to be shown. It's like, okay, yeah, no, this thing is actually not as bad as I think it is, but that takes a while, right? Because it turns out not everyone has the same, like a system of not system, not the same weights when it comes to how they evaluate things. Oof. So the storm is loud, eh? Just like absolutely. You okay, Kiyonala? Right? Oh my goodness.
Live in your neighborhood after all, and maybe you've lived there your whole life. So you, the pilot, are not some foreign enemy, but familiar faces. The part, and I am dead serious, this happens, where despite the 50-minute runtime, despite the janky, not always super tight animation, despite the sloppy occasional fan service episode, this
I will defend the occasional fan service episode because, damn it, fan service matters. Fan service is good. I will hear no counter argument, right? I will not suffer I will not suffer the disingenuous critique of the fan service episode. This communist propaganda to hate fan service.
This happened and immediately made me laugh and fall in love and go, I'm gonna remember this one, is really when the Yakuza, yes, the normal-ass Yakuza, show up and immediately try to extort the sisters and now booming local businesses.
Yep.
I had never seen a mecha show where this had happened. I was so used to the military or superheroic format and setup. But to quickly, and without too heavy spoilers,
fucking bell rung, hold on.
Superheroic format and setup. But to quickly, and without too heavy
hold on, frame by frame. It was like, that rung his bell. Holy crap, right?
Heavy spoilers illustrate it. Who do you think the average episode-to-episode antagonists are in this show? If it's not other giant colossi and even the military after a certain point, what happens? Well, here's a list of some of those who show up and act as antagonists in Neo Ranga. The aforementioned Yakuza.
Yep.
Corrupt local politicians. Corrupt national politicians. Neo-militant youth groups.
Yeah, remember when I said there's not really anyone safe from this? This is not a leftist show. This is not a rightist show. They take pot shots at both the left and the right in the show, from a Japanese perspective, not an American's perspective. When you're watching anime, you have to step outside of your American viewpoint and actually think about things from a Japanese cultural perspective, right? Because most of the time, the Japanese, when they're writing anime, they're not writing anime for Americans. They're writing anime for Japanese people, and they're doing it from within Japanese cultural contexts, right? So just because something might mean something in a Western context does not mean it means the same thing in a Eastern context, which is fundamentally different in many respects to, the West. But yeah.
Scamming quack doctors. Scummy TV producers. The military.
Yeah, so, again, not things that you would expect in a mecha series, but things that, again, you can't just use the mech to actually solve your problems in any... Because, again, it's like, yeah, sure, the military can't... hypothetically speaking, right? Let's say you use the power of your Neo Ranga to, take over the city, right? Well, there's nothing stopping you from getting shot. Right? You may be able to remotely command the robot, the machine, but... you're still flesh and blood, and you could still get shot, right? This is a real day. This is a real thing that people actually in the show have to actually contest with. It's like, oh yeah, just because he's big and really, really, really tough, doesn't mean I am, right? Boo Huckley says, why to go to war without being able to enjoy cake? God damn it. Crimson Rain says, ever watch Grave of the Fireflies? It's a good movie, but it's a bit overrated. Kionala says, I'm good. I still have light. My car is in one piece. That's fair.
Again, angry affluent homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
The President of the United States.
Yep.
Armed mercenaries. Greed-motivated bankers dealing with Japan's lost decade. Corrupt big city developers. Japanese comedy duos, angry, less affluent locals, including boomer old men. An ancient secret society of Japanese giant kami worshippers, Mecha otaku, and many more.
By the way, pause this. These actually make sense in context too. This is another reason why I actually really like this show. Is like none of this comes out of the blue. All of these people make sense in context of the show, right? It's like, oh yeah, the Yakuza. Why are the Yakuza here? Oh, because they want to be able to have their hands in all the businesses, right? Like, oh, because there's some way that you can extort favors out of, again, the people controlling the mech. Okay, yeah, so that actually makes sense. Corrupt local politicians. Oh, so you're telling me you have a giant possible weapon of war that we can use to our own advantage for our own purposes, especially considering that people think it's a literal god, right? Oh, we could definitely use this to our advantage, right? Corrupt national politicians, again, the exact same thing, right? Neo-militant youth groups, again, the gods have returned, right? So it's like you got state Shinto echoes here, but again, like the literal gods are returning, right? So it's like it makes sense that this is a thing. You get, and it's like, oh yeah, only Japan has a Kyoshin, so something must be special about Japan, right? Yes, again, like TV producers. Yeah, you don't think people would want... You don't think any TV company would want an exclusive with Neo Ranga and like the girls who control it, right? Again, the military obviously has an interest in this. You have angry, affluent homeowners. Yeah, it's like, because it's like every time this thing takes a step, my entire house shakes. I almost burned myself with the pot of boiling water I was trying to use to cook, right? Oh, every time something comes in and it actually makes sense. Armed mercenaries, no shit, armed mercenaries would be interested in this, right? Greed motivated bankers dealing with Japan's lost decade. Again, you can't think of a reason why they might be interested in a giant fucking mech, right? Again, just like everyone in here actually has a reason to be an antagonist in the story. And it actually, even the whole ancient secret society of Japanese kami worshippers. By kami, he should have written Kyoshin, but that's neither here or there, right? Yeah, the entire point here is like the show does take pot shots at religion in general. It's not just it's not just Western religions. It does take pot shots at like animism and Shinto in particular, and it also takes pot shots at atheism. So it's like, everyone kind of gets attacked as being like vulnerable to being subverted based on their own beliefs and systems in this.
Japanese comedy duos. Angry, less affluent locals, including boomer old men.
The Japanese comedy duo one, though, is really funny. I will suggest, again, even if I would suggest watching this because, again, it's also got some genuine humor in here.
An ancient secret society of Japanese giant kami worshippers, Mecha otaku, and many more. That's not an exhaustive list. Neo Ranga is fascinating because despite the name and the big dude, it's really a show about Ranga acting as a pressure point to trigger stuff to bubble up. Japanese-US military tensions on the big side to growing distant from one's close friends on the personal side. Giving up your dreams to get a steady income to, huge logistical questions about how to even deal with this thing. I was honestly surprised as I watched through just how far a show with an insanely low amount of big robot smash there was. I was engrossed in the way it tackled pretty real social and political woes.
Okay, so this scene is actually kind of funny. So long story short, it actually makes sense in context. So the Japanese government actually, and like the family that has possession of Neo Ranga, actually end up securing the city that takes place in, right? To be independent from the national government of Japan. And so therefore, moving between to and fro is basically like crossing a border, right? So all of these people are going to go protest Neo Ranga from outside Japan to reclaim the city effectively. So everyone's like, hey, here's my fucking passport, right? Go fuck off, right?
I was engrossed in the way it tackled pretty real social and political woes of Japan in the late 90s. That's the kind of realism Ranga is amazing at. Unhappy older generations. Yeah,
there's actually it also has a lot of time. It also does a lot of time for like character study, right? you get to understand like Ushio, like Yuhi, Minami, like all of the characters from like an actually pretty thorough perspective over time, right? Because you get to see not just them talking about stuff, but them actually working through problems that they can't easily solve, and seeing what their value systems are, and seeing how their value systems change and how it's informed by past experiences, right?
Youth with no sense of direction. A weirdly and surprisingly real show. Now, it ain't perfect. As you can probably tell from the advertising, they really like putting the sisters in scantily clad outfits. There are more than a few outright fan service oriented episodes.
Based. I don't see a problem here. You say that this doesn't make it perfect, but I say that this actually adds to the thing. I'm just saying, right? Fan service is good. I shall hear no slander against the fan service. Boo Huckley says, Mecha Cosmic Otaku, fair and enough. Kionalo says, if that tree in my yard breaks... fair enough.
However, I think I want to give Neo Ranga as a whole a much bigger pass than other stuff. I'd say even more than Evangelion for sure. To get why, I want to bring up something I glossed over. What about the other half of the series?
That's where it picks up, to be fair. All of the more, all of the larger story stuff picks up in like the second half.
What happens then? Well, without...
Although it also has a thing where, like, when it ramps up, it fucking ramps up, right? So the closer you get to the end, the more and the more, like, you get exposed to what's actually going on, and like the geo, like the actual like global political stuff, and it does kind of just like go faster and faster and faster when it comes to like catching you up to speed with everything going on. And in context, it makes sense, but it's like I can see how this would throw someone off.
Once more going into too heavy spoilers, more big guys do show up.
Yeah,
but
the Kyoshin.
how they do so and why, and I give the fan service bit in particular such a pass, it's all wrapped up in that old demon, deconstruction. That's right. If all of this sounds very familiar, it should. This is all in that ballpark. Literally. Pretty much every single kaiju that shows up is some kind of metaphor or deconstruction of something bigger going on with Japanese society.
Yeah, it's that whole thing where it's like, again, the monsters represent something, that is being attacked, just like in Godzilla films, right? Where it's like Hedorah represents pollution, right? No shit, right? Godzilla represents nuclear power and the dangers of nuclear weaponry in the first movie, right? Not exactly that hard to understand. It's just the common thing of like using the Kyoshin to represent some kind of societal destabilizing thing, and then running through it by having the situation negotiated through, fisticuffs, basically.
The show using Ranga and the other big guys as walking symbols. But what really stood out to me is that with that, the show seemingly does every single kind of deconstruction I'm really familiar with. Going back to the intro, the sisters do
Yeah, it's like Yuhi definitely takes advantage of the whole, yes, I could, like, we have possession of a literal god. We can get people to worship, the god, and, we can get favors for it. They even took the skull that had the fucking, speaker attached to it in the when they were on the island. They took it back with them to Japan, right? It was getting someone, a true believer, to grovel at their feet for a blessing, right? Let's see. Boo Huckley says U.S. plus Japan need to team up to operate shiny mechas, right? Gods to be worshipped as such by the simples. The promise of a place safe enough to have fun is worth flexing our might. Mind of Raw, damn, I'm late, right?
Absolutely.
I'm glad to see you here, Mind of Raw.
Cultural appropriation. They do TV spots with Ranga. They open a Ranga gift shop. Despite their huge giant guy, they are no more the richer for it. Ranga event party, Ranga Christmas advertising. So the wonder of having the big strong dude is brought crashing down into the raw economic reality of life.
Yeah, because again, they have to also pay for damages when Ranga actually does something that causes destruction, right? So their insurance premiums are probably through the roof. I don't remember if they talked about that, but yeah. There's also the thing, I don't like how he keeps bringing up cultural appropriation, because it's like, my guy, Buddhism is not Japanese. Buddhism is Indian, right? Japan, like most other polytheistic religions, has a, not religions. Shinto, like most other polytheistic religions, has this habit of, again, accepting that the gods of other people actually exist and being able to incorporate the gods of other people into their own worldview, right? This is exactly how we got, for example, some of the Taoist immortals as Shinto gods, right? This is how we had the whole integration of Shinto and Buddhism happen in the first place, right? This is how you can have in Nepal double belonging between Buddhism and Vaishnava, right? It's not exactly that hard to understand. When Hinduism became the religion of Indonesia, you know what happened? The local gods got folded into the Hindu religion. So it's like none of this is all that particularly like hard to understand. Hell, even monotheistic religions are subject to being folded into polytheistic religions at times, right? Hypsisterianism was an attempt to merge, for example, Judaism and Hellenism. You have, for example, during the Kokugaku period, specifically in the Mitogaku school, you had a Shinto philosopher and scholar who tried to figure out how exactly the god of Christianity fit in with Shinto, where exactly his placement was, and then he identified the god of Christianity with Amena Mina no Kanushi no Mikoto, right? So it's like, which, by the way, is the origin god in the Kojiki, the god who comes into being at the beginning and then unfolds all of the rest of reality with him coming into being, right? So, yeah. So it's like, again, there is no such thing as cultural appropriation when a god comes in from another culture and then you just fold it into your own way of thinking, especially when the god that you're folding into your religion literally exists and is right in front of you to be seen, right? In Shinto, like a god, a kami, is just a spirit, right? The spirit of a mountain, right? Like, so the kami of Mount Fuji is the spirit of Mount Fuji, right? The kami of, again, a kami can be a ghost. For example, just think about, for example, the deceased emperors, right? Or deceased scholars that, became revered as kami. Kami can be, again, just the spiritual aspect of a natural phenomenon, be it the sun, be it a mountain, be it the wind, right? A kami can also just be a ghost who was never a human being, right? That is another thing that the kami can be. It is remarkably vague, and you can't look at Neo Ranga and tell me, oh yeah, that wouldn't be a kami at all. Absolutely, a Shinto mind would think of Neo Ranga as a kami. Let's be perfectly honest, right? So that this is not cultural appropriation, because the fucking mech also just belongs to the king of Baro, right? And it turns out that, again, the kingdom, the rulership of Baro belongs to the family, right? Through inheritance from the older brother. So again, this is not cultural appropriation. I don't know why we're harping on this, right? If you are the rightful possessor of a thing, it's not appropriation by definition. Anyway,
maybe we can get him to like deliver stuff. Maybe we can just have him show up and be paid for that. All of this should sound very familiar as the very definition of demythologization.
Yeah, they're trying. To be fair, they do try to use the grandeur of Neo Ranga for rather mundane purposes, but this is also not all that uncommon in Shinto either. Right? In many polytheistic religions, obviously there was a grandeur that the gods had, right? But the sacred permeated from the celestial into the mundane too, right? Because it's like in for example, Mugyo, you have the fucking god of the door, right? The door itself has a god, a shin, right? A sin, or sin, not sin. It's a sin, but so it's like, yeah, even the mundane has a divine aspect to it, right? So allowing the mundane and the divine to coexist in this way is not exactly inconceivable in a Shinto worldview. And again, they come from a family of Shinto priests, so this wouldn't be something that would be too odd to them. right? I'm just saying.
Grounding the fantastical in the mundane and real. Now, later on, they do have Ranga go to their family's hometown. In that arc, they deal with the nostalgia of wanting giant guys to be cool, while at the same time now having grown distant from their rural relatives.
Why is he saying giant guys? It's Kyoshin. It's not that guy. Why is he saying giant? Is this just a joke that he has throughout the whole series? I've never seen a previous episode before, so I genuinely don't know.
The entire arc also comments on the demolition of the older Shinto shrine to make a new Ranga shrine.
Yeah, this is just a thing that happens. I mean, it's tragic that this is what is going on, right? But, like, in polytheism, gods don't have permanent ties to a location, right? Because gods serve a function. It turns out if a god ceases to do its function in polytheism, the god gets abandoned. That is a thing that even polytheists will actually admit to. You can actually go and read like what polytheists will admit about polytheism. And yes, if a god doesn't perform its function, then it does not get the sacrifice, right? The god, in this case, stopped performing its function. And so the god ceases to be something worthy of oblation. Hence, again, it needs to be replaced with a new god that continues to actually perform the function. And yes, it's seen as tragic on a historical level, but on an actual, like, polytheistic worldview, the people on the side of Neo Ranga are actually completely correct. And in fact, this episode kind of vindicates the Neo Ranga side, right? It's like, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's not good that, like, they're going to lose their property in the shrine that they've always known, right? But the shrine that they've always known doesn't serve a function anymore, except for maybe remembering this odd little historical quirk. But yeah, the god in this particular scene actually becomes a violent god, right? It needs to be actually destroyed. And so Neo Ranga actually does destroy that evil, that evil god. He actually performs what would effectively be an exorcism, right? That actual, the destruction of a malevolent spirit. And yeah, it's just, does it suck? Yeah, but it actually turns out that there are actual answers that are in the story that are just there for you to see if you're willing to see it.
It works as both a metaphor for new culture pushing out old traditions, as well as for new mecha works of new big cool guys literally replacing old ones.
That's true, but also you're missing the fact that, like, they are literal gods, right? They were worshipped as gods in ancient times by polytheists. And again, you should probably consider the implications of polytheology when you're reviewing, again, stories that talk about polytheism that were written in heavily polytheistic influenced cultures. I get it. Someone will say, oh, well, Shinto's not really polytheistic, it's animistic. It's both. The two are not mutually exclusive. A religion can be animistic in that everything has a spirit, and polytheistic in the sense of it has a myriad of ghost gods, right? The two are not mutually exclusive. Hell, these are not exclusive with pantheism too, right? You can also be a pantheist and believe in a myriad of ghost gods, right? Just by saying that, yes, the universe itself, in a sense, is a god. And hell, you can even have a monotheistic style god among ghost gods. You want to know what book 10, hymn 121 of the Rig Veda is about? It's about the god of gods, Hiranyagarbha, right? The god to whom even gods owe oblation, right? The Landman book is a work of, like, Norse pagan law. And you know what it talks about? The Almatakias, right? The almighty god, right? The god of gods. What is another one? You want to know what, like, Aristotle himself, a polytheist, talked about? He talked about the unmoved mover, the prime mover. Oh, you're talking about a god of gods, right? What do you think Plato was talking about in like his theory of forms when he talked about the form of the good, i.e., the form of perfection, or the form of being, right? Oh, the form of being is literally the source from which all things derive their being and their perfection, right? Oh, wait a minute. This thing is effectively a god of gods, right? Again, it's not all polytheistic religions, but again, there was a reason why it wasn't that difficult for the Greeks to think that, oh, wait, yeah, Zeus Hephaestos, right? Which is effectively just a translation of El Elyon, because Zeus actually is derives from the old Proto-Indo-European word Dieus, which means God or sky, right? And Zeus himself used to be called Zeus Pater, i.e., God or Sky Father. Sky Father, right? There's a lot of Sky Fathers, like Dyaus Peter is, for example, the Hindu version of it in the Rig Veda. Jupiter also derives from the same thing. So yeah, Jupiter is also called Deus Pater as well. So it's like, yeah, it's not that fucking hard, right? Again, it's not that hard to remember that, like, this is a fundamentally different cultural context, and yeah, we as Westerners may import our own assumptions into the story, but we have to remember to acknowledge that this is a story in a radically different cultural context, which is even brought up in the show itself too, right? Sorry, I get a little bit riled up because I actually like anthropology of religion.
The mecha nerds that show up there and, then try to do stuff, try to command Ranga with the stereotypical wristwatch and cool poses.
Boo Huckley says, Evangelion. Oh, you watched that fucking Robin Williams movie, right? Oh my god. Boo Huckley says, if you don't sell your beliefs as cute fan service anime, it will cease to exist. The death of gods, right? This is truly what caused Ragnarok, right?
I'd say all of that really counts towards nostalgia. But at the same time, Ranga does literally reaffirm the myth in the show of big, cool, strong guys existing. The secret society of Kyoshin revealing their existence to the public. They say pretty bluntly that Japanese youth need a big, cool symbol to solidify their national identity, and why not ancient giant kami? This feels absolutely surreal when recently the Japanese PM highlighted anime, including Gundam, including big real Gundams, as a key part of Japanese soft power.
Okay, I'm gonna go back for a moment. Okay, so this is Takaichi Sanae, who, by the way, I don't like, right? She is one of the people who is trying to import fucking third worldists into Japan and destroy Japan, and I'm not a big fan of that. Anyway, she said, I feel that the strength of Japan's anime content enhances our diplomatic power. Yeah, cultural power is real power. You can actually do things with cultural power without having to resort to hard power. So yes, she is actually objectively right about this. The market has significant room to expand overseas. She is also right about this, right? Why shouldn't Japan try to fucking use all of its ability in anime to, again, promote its own well-being, right? Just saying, right? I mean, America promoted its culture across the world when Hollywood was good, right? Why, and its ideologies. So why the fuck not Japan, right? And in the case of Japan, Japan is heavily influenced its culture by Buddhism and Shinto. So what do you think are going to be the tools and symbols that they end up doing, right? Using. It's not exactly that hard. And as far as like big cool guys, again, their fascination with big cool guys is directly tied to, again, the animism of Shinto. You ever wonder why the robot always has an inner spirit, right? You had fucking Ideon, right? There's a spirit inside Ideon. Evangelion was like defined by a particular spirit in the mech. Neo Ranga is a literal god, right? In Mazinger Z, you had the idea of like, the lad was promised by the mad scientist father. It's like, you can be a god or a devil, and it turns out that was a lie, right? Well, yeah, no, the association of, again, the mech with, the lost divinity is actually not that uncommon in anime and manga, because the concept of divinity is all pervasive in Shinto, which is the foundation point of Japanese culture. So it's actually not that surprising, and it's not... I don't know, it kind of seems like, again, if you take it aback by this kind of idea, it's just a little disconnected from the reality of the situation.
Including big real Gundams, as a key part of Japanese soft power.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that particular prime minister, but I would have different bones to pick with her.
This then strands the sisters in their neighborhood as a weird foreign enclave and territory within Tokyo.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier, but yeah, it effectively functions as like a, if you know, like Lesotho in South Africa, it's like a country completely surrounded by another country. Or like San Marino and the Vatican would be probably better examples, where there's like two small city states that are completely surrounded by a much larger country. Yeah, they basically became the San Marino or the Vatican City in Japan, right? It was like an independent country, technically, just completely surrounded on all sides by Japan territorially.
Yes, they deal with having the power and water shut off because, of course, they do. And as for Berlin,
Well, I mean that infrastructure is Japanese, right? It's not it's not their country; it's the Japanese country, right? So it's like if you're not part of Japan anymore, why should you reap the benefits of Japanese infrastructure? Again, it makes sense in context. Hold on. Crimson Rain 14 says she understands cultural power, but doesn't see the threat of adding more of another culture to their population. I don't. Okay, I can't read her mind, and I don't know enough about her, but I don't get the sense of she's an idiot. I get the sense of malicious. I could be wrong, but I get more of a malicious thing about her, right? Because it's like, I get most Japanese people don't know a damn thing about Islam, for example. So it's like, okay, when you talk about Islam and Kurds and like Kurds, being largely Muslim, it kind of flies over a lot of people's heads until you directly explain to them, oh, by the way, the Quran says this. Oh, by the way, the Hadith say this. Oh, by the way, the Sirat Rasul Ilah says this. Oh, by the way, these are fatwas, or like literal like jurisprudential rulings about this particular subject matter, right? And it's usually most Japanese people I've seen online, like when being told about this stuff, when you tell them that, they usually like figure out what the problem is, right? But because the Japanese have no real experience with Islam, right? This is completely out of left field for them. Like, what experience do they have with Islam, right? It's mostly what is being portrayed out of, for example, anime and manga, right? It's like fucking A Bride's Tale, which, by the way, A Bride's Tale is fucking great manga, right? But it is not a good representation of Islam or Islamic culture because it kind of romanticizes that culture when it's like absolutely not, right? Okay.
satire, the final category. During the show, there is in fact an entirely separate mecha-using group, ACE,
Yep.
which regularly plays a supporting role. Their completely realistic and practical diesel-powered mecha is essentially seen by the military as oversized engineering equipment. Its pilot is the
These guys are pretty fucking funny.
neighborhood's local beat cop who desperately wants a battle of justice to happen, but is frustrated out of it by the mundane limits of real life. And also the Yakuza at one point. And this is also where the fan service comes in. Once again, I am not joking, there is a 2-part episode about using Ranga in a variety television show to earn some cash. This show includes a swimsuit women game where multiple bras fall off and there's even bare nipples, no less. But you know why I give it a pass?
Because this kind of thing actually does show on Japanese TV from time to time.
As in the second part of that 2-part episode series, a slimy TV producer guy literally says we need to film the giant guys fighting and basically half-naked girls in peril, otherwise the Japanese public won't watch our broadcast.
Yeah, it's almost as if there's an actual reason in here, right?
Like Garth Marenghi's immortal quote, it was as if the creators of the show basically stared at the camera and did the freaking DreamWorks face at me. If this is not the definition of burlesque satire, of making fun of everything, please drop a sack of bricks on my head.
I don't think I will. I don't think I will. Are World War II propaganda cartoons right-wing woke? Right-wing and woke don't go together for the simple fact that, like, woke is just American Maoism, right? You can still have a dialectical right, which is still really bad, right? But woke is foundationally Maoist in nature, right? It's just Maoism inflected to an American culture. So no, it's actually not possible to be right-wing woke because it's a confusion of terms. Let's see.
The only way this wacky 24-episode thing, which got squeezed into 15-minute chunks, was gonna fly in a made-for-otaku programming block was to do just that. Sprinkle in just enough tits and big guys punching to make time for all that weird-ass subtle stuff it mainly wanted to spend most of its time talking about. Now, having said all that, Ranga isn't perfect. Even if self-aware and deconstructive, it still has a lot of fan service. The pacing is...
I don't understand what is the bad thing about the fan service. You haven't actually explained what is bad about the fan service. Right? The main problem I have with a lot of deconstructive media is that it ends up becoming lost in its own head, right? It actually, yeah, sure, demythologization is one of those things where it's like, again, it's trying to take all the fantastical elements out of it, right? But in doing so, oftentimes it it misses the point of the mythology in the first place, right? It's not as if the mythology is meant to be taken as reality. The mythology actually serves a function, right? Art is a selective recreation of reality by its very nature, right? Selective is the actual point here. It's not meant to recreate the entire reality. It's only meant to selectively recreate an aspect of reality, right? And it can do so through fantastical means, because the fantastical means are ultimately symbolic, right? But like, you haven't explained to me why the fan service is actually bad. This is one of those things that gets really annoying to me, where it's like, again, it's like, you're saying this, but you haven't actually shown to me why it's bad that there's fan service. Like, what is the problem? Like, genuinely speaking, what is the actual problem?
Unsurprisingly, all over the place. Not just
better standard fan service than the author's unarguably weird fetish taking spotlight. I mean, yeah, that's fair enough.
For Sho Ayakawa, who is typically very fast and, very choppy with his editing, but squished into 15 minutes minus 2 to 3 minutes of credits, 11 minutes fast. It's very discordant at times. The animation quality has bursts of really good episodes. Okay, it's funny, it's okay to go off model episodes, and obviously low outsourced / subcontracted animation.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. That one is definitely, I'll just give you that one. Especially like in the one of the very, very later ones where it's like, okay, whoever is doing the animation here is definitely not the same people who were doing it beforehand.
The OST is likewise filled with a few real bangers. OP1 and ED2 are very, very good, but then there's a lot of perfectly just okay music. There's also, towards the end, what really seems to be a massive increase in anime bullshit relationships as the focus. For cheap romantic tension, basically. Now, Neo Ranga never endorses it outright, thank God, but it still, for a limited runtime show, wastes a hell of a lot of time on it, despite most of these also not really furthering or interestingly developing the characters.
I mean, I'll give you that, but you have to remember that a lot of Japanese psychology at the time was heavily influenced by Freudian psychoanalysis, right? And if you pay attention to what's going on here, all of those like romantic subplots are extremely Freudian in like the way that they lean, right? If you're going to talk about a lens by which to analyze this from, if you're going to talk about a literary lens, Neo Ranga definitely lends itself pretty fucking hardly towards a Freudian psychoanalysis. Well, I mean, you could probably do Lacan as well, to be perfectly honest. The deconstruction does lend itself to Lacan as well, so.
Most of these tensions also don't really work out anywhere either. Likewise, the plot does eventually need to conclude, and it does so in a more conventional, at least by post-Evangelion standards, of a wrap-up. It isn't great. The rush pacing leaves it positively gasping for air. In a way, I kind of wish a much lower stakes, but far more interesting conclusion was chosen. As neat as Ranga is, it ultimately isn't as tightly and well put together as Eva.
I mean, yeah, I don't think anyone was gonna say that, to be perfectly honest, right? But at the same time, it's like, I don't really think the ending was bad. Yeah, it was rushed, obviously, but the ending was actually, and it's actually pretty fucking down to earth, right? Like, the actual ending of the story is okay. And spoilers, I guess, for Neo Ranga. So I guess mute for a bit. I'll put K in the chat for when I'm done with the spoiler, right? But at the end of Neo Ranga, right, we already had the issue of, like, there's a bunch of other Kyoshin that are being found, right? So this was eventually going to become a major geopolitical problem, right? Only one group has access to Kyoshin, so you want to know who actually has all the power when it becomes an issue? Well, guess what? It's going to be the one with all the Kyoshin, right? And then we find out that actually Ranga, it is actually like calling him a god is actually not exactly that far off. Like his main enemy is a entity called Tau, a being who exists somewhere in the universe, maybe outside of time and space. It's not entirely clear, but Tau is able to actually rip holes in space and time to again like just put a wormhole close enough to the solar system to where to a star that will go supernova in God knows how long, right? So, but anyway, that's kind of the point, though. It's like Ranga's enemy, Ranga is the only one that seems to be able to defeat Tau. Is that's the thing he's up against, and at the end, like Ushio basically says, we can't fight Tau, right? The cost is like it's not really possible to fight Tau, and it's obvious why. It's like, I mean, let's say you hypothetically do go and you try to fight Tau, right? You have to first leave the Earth, which leaves the Earth unguarded, which then means that the people you just defeated can potentially take all the power that they had just lost back. But even let's say you go and you try to fight Tau, right? Ranga actually has the ability to manipulate space and time as well, right? Well, Tau can do the exact same thing, and Tau can do it on a much more intuitive and obvious level than Ranga can. And let's be fair, if he can open up a portal between two different stars, one of which is going to go supernova at any time, they can't really tell. If you leave Earth to go fight him, he can just do that again. Like, what the fuck is going on now? I don't know what the hell happened, but like, my pro chat just went fucking schizophrenic. But yeah, so like, if they leave Earth, it's undefended, and Tau has already demonstrated that he can just attack Earth from literal light years away without actually having to bridge any distance, right? He can literally make like the distance between two objects disappear, right? Only Ranga seems to be able to stop that, but he can't do that if he's not on Earth, and he can't even do that if he's on Earth. So it's like, yeah, Ranga can go and kill Tau, but by the time that happens, Tau can already have wiped out the entire human race, right? They are in an actual literal no-win situation at the end of it, right? And they don't necessarily outline this directly to the audience, but anyone who's actually watching the show can piece this together. So it's like, as far as like demythologization, is like, yeah, Ranga is literally the only one with the power to kill the closest thing to a god in the entire franchise, right? So it's like you're going JRPG style, right? And even if you go and do that, you're still probably going to lose, because it's probably going to cost you way more than you could ever add than like was actually worth the fight, right? So it's like, again, if you're talking about demythologization, it literally demythologizes the whole let's go and kill God fucking thing, right? Because it's like, even if you could, the cost is just too fucking high, right? And it's not like they don't lose, again, an important character in doing so, even before doing that, right? To kind of drive the cost home. It's like, oh yeah, this is what happened just in this particular conflict. A bigger conflict's going to be even worse, right? So, let's see. So yeah, there's my little rant about that. Is yeah, there is a demythologization aspect to even the whole let's go save the world thing. It's like the world is in a sense too big to be saved, and if there's someone like this that you have to save the world from, that's too big even with Ranga's powers to really do so with any degree of certainty, right? So, but I would say that yes, Evangelion is more tightly constructed as a story, and it is a superior story, but Neo Ranga is still fun, and I still don't understand what the problem with fan service is.
And there's also a bit of a hint that they maybe wanted a second season or something more. Largely, though, it doesn't really contribute enough to cover up the weak parts. But, much like TNG enabling the creation of the supremely weird Lex.
What do you mean that there was a hint that they wanted to do a second season? Literally, the ending of Ranga is a hard rejection of there being a second season. What are you talking about?
Or Sailor Moon leading to Utena. Evangelion opening the door for something like Ranga to get made is, in retrospect, I think, a good thing.
I would agree.
Like my previous vids show, Ranga isn't a carbon copy of Eva. Rather, it took...
Okay, if anyone says that, they're fucking retarded. I would be more willing to take, like, okay, look, so I would be more willing to accept, oh yeah, Ranga took from Narutaru, which, by the way, I think Narutaru came out first, but no, even then, there's like some visual influence, but no, even then, no.
Eva's weird opening and kind of jumped into it with its own direction. For someone like myself, who thought I had seen literally everything from Mecha, shows like Ranga are a treat. Everything which makes them so very weird and flawed also makes them very neat and novel. So, should you watch Neo Ranga?
Yeah, I do actually have to disagree with this part. Yeah, this is rooted in secular. Well, there's also a secular counterpoint to this, right? This is rooted in modern anthropology of religion. The idea that like monotheism stems from polytheism. I would disagree with this. I actually think the monotheistic hypothesis of Andrew Lang actually has more credibility to it than does the polytheism worldview. But it takes a hoe, God kill a god. Fair enough. But yeah, this right here, what they're talking about, this all ancient religions have their roots in polytheism. They got their hands on the New Testament. They're talking about the Yahwist hypothesis, which is the idea that Yahweh was originally a Canaanite storm god. But again, as I pointed out earlier, it's like we never had an issue with polytheistic religions taking on the concept of a monotheistic deity, or even taking a monotheistic deity from a monotheistic religion and folding it into their own pantheon. For one reason, even Shinto did this with Christianity at one point, right? So it's like, yeah, no, just because like the Canaanites had a god called Yahweh does not mean that the Hebrew conception of Yahweh came from the Canaanites. In fact, by the time that these inscriptions were made, Yahweh was probably already a fairly well-established deity. So you don't actually have any information about where it came from, because you would find the same archaeological evidence if Yahweh was an ancient monotheistic deity that was then adopted into a pagan religion, or if he was a pagan deity that eventually split off into his own monotheistic religion. What would be the difference, archaeologically speaking, that you would actually expect when it comes to archaeological evidence, right? Because if the monotheistic god gets adapted as a lesser god in the polytheistic religion, then, by the way, El is just the word for God. So you'll find people try to say that like El and Yahweh were originally two different gods. But no, if Yahweh was always the original god of the Hebrews, right, then he would have still been called El, because El just means God, right? Yahweh is an actual personal name for that deity. So like if that was the actual original monotheistic religion, you would still see a split between the two, between the polytheistic religion and the monotheistic religion. Again, I digress. Yeah, like, I don't really see how you could actually find any solid evidence one way or the other. It just seems like an unprovable hypothesis. It is one of those things where it's like, which one do you think actually makes more sense? I read some of the Sumerian texts where they actually say that all men used to worship Enlil, and it's like, that sounds to me like a polytheistic culture remembering a time when they may have been henotheists, right? They only worshipped one god, not necessarily denying that other gods existed, right? Which is probably what early Judaism was. It probably was a henotheistic religion, not a strictly monotheistic religion. Again, I digress, but it's just a little pet peeve of mine when it comes to like the religion, like when it comes to anthropology of religion. Is it entirely possible that the original religion was polytheism? That's entirely possible. Is it possible that the original religions of man were monotheistic? That's also possible. Is it possible by the time that like writing developed that there were multiple people who were polytheistic and multiple peoples who were monotheistic? That's also possible, because you can find monotheistic tendencies across the world, in Africa, in the Americas, in Europe, in Asia, in Australia, across multiple tribes, as just as you can find polytheistic tendencies in each of those continents as well, right? So it would be much more common sense to me that there were probably some tribes that were monotheistic, some tribes that were polytheistic, and like that just seems like the very obvious thing that just seems obvious to me, right? many of the most materially primitive cultures are henotheistic, right? So that would be a strong argument in favor of monotheism. But at the same time, you can also find materially primitive cultures that are polylatric. So it's like, again, this is one of those things where it's like, there is no really hard evidence to this. Anyone who tells you that it's a certainty that Yahweh began as a storm god is fucking speaking through their teeth, right?
Sure. But be aware that what makes it neat is not a series of Eva-like well-animated fight scenes.
Oh yeah, obviously, if you're looking for this as like the next Evangelion, no, you gotta go in here. If you're gonna watch Neo Ranga, you gotta go in there willing to engage Neo Ranga with what it is. And this is the problem I see with a lot of different people, right? They go into a story and they want it to be something, or they expect it to be something. And then it's not the thing that they wanted or expected it to be, not because it was falsely advertised, but more along the lines of like they came in with nested preconceptions that then prevented them from being able to actually interact with the story in the terms that it was actually designed for, right? So that's a fair criticism on this guy's part.
It has a few, but not many. No, it's really how it plays with the conventions of Mecha by showing them in a very mundane but unconventional set of setups, which makes it really stand out. Also, if you are terminally bionicle pilled like me, you are already culturally Polynesian at a young age anyway, so, that
You are already culturally Polynesian at a young age anyway.
whole aesthetic vibe will go over just very well. It is ultimately a show which asks some neat questions. It has a few neat answers and situations, which you don't get very often from Mecha, or really anime in general. Also, please like the half-naked girls and pay the 2,000 yen WoW subscription fee at
Please.
$19.99, please. Next time, we're going to be talking about...
He didn't explain why the half-naked girls thing is actually all that, bad. To be perfectly honest, right? Like, what the I don't... What the fuck is going on here? Like, fan service is not bad. Oh, oh, naked girl, who gives the fuck? Right? This is a non-issue. Like, this is literal first world problems.
Probably still the most miserably dark mecha thing ever made ever.
Oh, is it going to be Bokurano? Oh, yep, it's Bokurano.
The one which makes Ideon feel just a bit down with a happy ending.
Yeah, Bokurano is okay, so if you wanted to know what Bokurano is, ideologically speaking, Bokurano is a very nihilistic story. Granted, it does have a glimmer of hope at the end of it that it tries to set up, but given everything that precedes it, it's not very hopeful. It is like everything is subject to collapse and entropy in Bokurano. And actually, this scene in particular is also pretty bad, because this scene in Bokurano is, and by the way, I hate Bokurano, so like if you don't want spoilers from Bokurano, feel free to again put me on mute for a bit. But this is a scene where this is a scene in Bokurano where they have to find one person on this alternative Earth to kill to make sure that their world survives. And that guy actually disappears into the crowd. So the only solution that they can come up with, since this machine can identify every single individual person, but can't tell you which one the actual person they need is, oh yeah, we'll just fragment parts of the mech off and we will kill in mass huge swaths of the human population until we eventually get them, right? The whole I hate Bokurano with passion, right? Like, if you wanted if you could not come up with a more evil view of human life than Bokurano, to be perfectly honest. Oh my god.
Evangelion didn't actually go far enough. With this series almost reaching its conclusion, we will be looking, second to last, at the extremely oof Bokurano.
I fucking hate Bokurano. So there was the Shadow of Evangelion, episode 5, Neo Ranga. I disagreed with I respect the tenacity to pick a fight with nearly every single trash tier YouTuber you stumble across. I mean, that's entirely fair. But yeah, so in general, I agree. I think the whole thing with cultural appropriation is entirely misplaced in the Neo Ranga thing, because it's a very Western idea that just wouldn't work with Japan anyway because of how much Japan is culturally appropriated, quote unquote, right? I mean, they have Christian weddings. Their writing system is Chinese. Much of their philosophy, especially with regards to governance, is Chinese, i.e. Confucianism, which, by the way, was one of the official religions of Japan for quite a while. One of their major religions, again, is Indian Buddhism, right? Inherited from China, so that's itself doubly culturally appropriative, right? Ramen is itself, a Chinese appropriation. There's a lot that they take from China, from actually. So this is just fucking ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thing. Crimson says something like a Pyrrhic victory. Oh, you had no. That's calling that a victory is a bit of an oversell, to be perfectly honest. Okay, let me put it this way. Bokurano makes Warhammer 40k look like Hope Punk. If that sounds fucking wild, it's because that is actually how dark Bokurano is. Let's see. Kionel says Puritanism is the modern anime community. In the modern anime community, yeah. Oh no, there's anime titty. Who gives a shit, right? Never interacted with 40k. Fair enough. But other than that, is the ending bad? No, the ending's not bad. I challenge anyone in the chat to actually watch Neo Ranga and get back to me and tell me the ending was bad in earnest, right? I highly doubt most people are going to say the ending is bad. They will probably agree it was rushed, it's imperfect, but the ending isn't actually bad. I think that's over selling the imperfections of the anime. And again, I just don't get the hate with fan service. I just don't get the hate with fan service, right? So, that's my reaction to Argon Bolts. I found the analysis interesting. It's the best analysis of Neo Ranga on the YouTube so far. But then again, considering the competition, it wasn't exactly a high bar to meet. So that will be it for this episode. I actually am still going to thank Argon Bolt for making this, because again, he's still, even though I think some of his criticisms of Neo Ranga are a little bit unfair, I at least can respect that he defended Neo Ranga, right? Because it is a good show, even if it isn't a perfect show. So yeah, that will be it for today, and I will see you in the next episode.